welcome back. We're still going to be working on fractions, but we're going to look at fractions on a number line. So we are given this question: how do number lines help us understand numbers? You're used to seeing a number line that shows whole numbers. The numbers on this number line are the same distance apart. The distance from one number to the next is one whole. Each time you add another whole, you count another whole number on the number line. Okay, notice they put one whole for each of these. It looks like a fraction, but the fact that it has wholes is telling you that they are whole numbers. So we have 1 whole chocolate bar, 2 whole chocolate bars, and so on and so forth. Now we're going to look at it a little differently. We've been working with models, and this square right here that's divided to 1/4 is a perfect example of what we've been working on. But below it, we have it all spread out in a line right on top of a number line, which is very convenient that they use squares and they laid them out straight across. And we're going to go into that because this is a perfect way to look at it. So we have this number line, we have our model all spread out across the number line. And well, if you look at our first example, they put holes, but we're dealing with fractions. So these little tick marks they don't have a number underneath them or a fraction. So we have to kind of figure out what's going on with it. Now our first tick, we're like, okay, there's 1/4 space in between 0 to this first one. And well, 0 is not a fraction, but I know the next tick mark is going to be a fraction because it's 1/4 away from it. So I'm going to put 1/4. And now I have another one. And this is like a little trick that I like to use. I have my first one, and I'm going to think of whole numbers for just a split second because I'm only going to put in my numerators. What's after 1? 2. Oh, we still have another one, and that one's going to be 3. And this 1, you can actually change it into a 4 for now. Now I have my numerators. I got to put in my denominators, which, lucky for us, they already gave us our denominators, which is a 4, because we know they're all the same size. So we're going to go ahead and plug those in. So now we have a 2/4, a 3/4, and then we have something that looks a little strange for our last one. We have a 4/4. This is a nice little trick that I still use today. I know if I have the same number on top and bottom, that's a whole number when it comes to fractions. So really, my 4/4 is 1 whole. So I'm going to write that note right here so you can see that this is the same as 1 whole. 1 whole. Now, making the fractions on a number line at first are going to seem kind of hard because number lines can go on really long. And then trying to make them all equal in between, it kind of gets difficult too. But don't get discouraged if your number lines are not perfect. You've seen all my handwriting on here. It is not perfect, and it's completely fine. Now, on our second page for today, they laid it out for us. So I showed you how to do it, and now they give us a model confirming that we did it correctly. They even wrote a 1 up on top. That's fine if you want to do it like that in order to keep track of how many holes you have. You can do that. You can write it out. You can even color it a different color if you need to, just so it catches your eye. But what happens when you have more than 1 hole? Well, they laid it out for us already, but I'm going to go through it and kind of explain what happens or how to continue it after you get to one whole. So we stopped right here. We got our 4 over 4. And remember, I said the same number is in the numerator and the denominator. That means I have a whole number, which is 1 in this case. But they gave us 4 more 1/4. And we're going to add on to it. So they wrote 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4. And some of y'all probably noticed that the numerator is bigger than the denominator, and that's kind of weird. Well, when you are given fractions with a numerator that's larger than the denominator, that means you have a whole somewhere in there. So with my 5th graders, they really had to look at this and they had to use some division with this, but you're not going to go into that yet. Just know it's going to come into play later. So this is super important to see it within this number line for now. So I know we have a whole in there. The reason I know is not only did we make an entire number line and find that whole because I wrote that 1 on top, I also know because I just told y'all that the numerator is larger than the denominator, saying, hey, there's a hole in here. So on the number line, we can look and see how many holes are in there and what's left over, so our actual fraction within it. So I'm going to look at, we'll keep with 5/4 and look at it. So I have 5/4. They already gave us our whole, so I'm going to write, okay, I have 1 whole. And I'm going to look right here because right after I have my 1 whole, it's almost like the fraction started over again. I have 1 whole and 1/4. This is what my 5/4 looks like. So 5/4 equals 1 and 1/4. Now let's skip over to 7/4. I still have a hole somewhere in here. I look back, I see, oh, okay, we still have 1 hole. I haven't gone over to 2 holes yet. I'm not there yet when I'm on my number line. Still at 1, so I write out 1. And now I need to see what my leftovers are. So I need to find my fraction. Well, just like we did in the beginning, it's kind of like it on the other side though. So if I go back into my noggin and I just say, okay, 1/4. Oh, I know this was 2/4 because remember we're starting over. 3/4, and this would be a 4/4. Now I'm looking at my 7/4 and I'm like, okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. So my leftover is going to be 3/4. So I know 7/4 is the same thing as 1 and 3/4. Now that's really breaking it down. For now, it is okay to have your numerator larger than your denominator because we're practicing. So now that we can see that even though our numerator may be larger than our denominator, there's a hole in there. Before I go on to the last part, I want to point out 8/4, okay? The distance from 0 to 2 on the number line can be named as 2 or 8/4. This is what I was just saying. It is okay for now that you have your numerator larger than your denominator because we're practicing, like I just said, and they confirmed it once again. That is okay. If you write a 2, I understand that that is the same thing for 8/4 on this number line. Okay, other number lines may go to the whole number 2 and you have to write the fraction for it. It's not always going to be 8/4. There are going to be other fractions that we call equivalent fractions 2/8 to also mean 2. This last part, we're going to do it together. I'm going to show you how to do this because you are going to get questions like this. How many 1/3 or thirds are there between 0 and 1 on a number line? Okay, I'm going to write my number line, and I'm going to take advantage of these lines they wrote and make them into a number line. So 1/3. I know my number line needs to have 3 equal parts. I know the last one is going to be 1 whole, and I know the first tick mark is going to be a 0. So I'm going to split into thirds. So I cut 1 and I cut 2, but in between I have 3 equal spaces. I'm going to write 1 and 2. So in between, I know I split it up into thirds. I know this is 1/3, so I'm going to write 1/3, this whole part. I'm going to get a different color and write a line through this part because this tells me this is another third, which is going to be 2/3. And one more color. This 1 is the same thing as 3/3, which, if they're the same number on the numerator and denominator, it's a whole number. So I have 1 whole. Okay, I filled out my number line. Now I can really look at the question and answer it. How many 1/3 are there between 0 and 1 on the number line? So I'm going to look at 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to write there are 3/3 on the number line between 0 to 1. All right, now go ahead, get on iReady. It's going to have you practice these instead of just listening to me and watching me work these out on my own. It's great practice, so go ahead and get started.